In the bakery window, the smell of bread seemed to mock the hunger of an 8-year-old girl. Asking for a piece on credit, she was humiliated until a millionaire decided to intervene. What he did shocked everyone there. If this story interested, do subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like this video and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The frost-kissed streets of Portland, Maine, were barely stirring that December morning. A biting wind swept through the harbor district, where historic red brick buildings stood sentinel against the Atlantic's harsh breath. Most residents were still tucked away in warm beds, but not little Emma Riley. At 8 years old, she navigated the empty sidewalks with determined steps, her worn sneakers soaked through from the morning's icy puddles. Emma's stomach had been growling since yesterday afternoon. She'd given her portion of the meager dinner to her younger sister, Lily, who at 5 years old still didn't understand why food sometimes disappeared from their lives for days. Their father had been gone for nearly 2 weeks this time, and the cabinet's last can of beans was now just an empty tin in the trash. The aroma of fresh bread pulled Emma like an invisible thread toward Hartman's bakery. Through the foggy window, she could see Mr. Hartman himself, a round-bellied man with flour-dusted arms, pulling golden loaves from the stone oven. The smell was almost painful in its richness, making her empty stomach contract. After several minutes of staring, Emma pushed her small frame against the heavy glass door. The bell jingled, announcing her presence to the woman behind the counter, Mrs. Hartman, whose pinched expression suggested she already recognized trouble when it walked in. "We're not fully open yet," Mrs. Hartman said, her tone clipped. "Come back with your parents in an hour." Emma clutched the single quarter in her pocket, not nearly enough for even the day-old bread, but it was all she had. "Please, ma'am," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My sister's sick. At home. Could I maybe pay later for some bread? I promise I'll bring the money next week." Mrs. Hartman's face hardened. "This isn't a charity, child. We can't just put 2 loaves in a bag for her." The deep voice came from the corner of the bakery, where a man sat alone at a small table, with a coffee and newspaper. Emma hadn't noticed him when she entered. He stood now, revealing his tall frame in an expensive-looking grey overcoat. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and despite the early hour, he appeared freshly shaved and immaculate. "And add some of those cinnamon rolls too," he added, approaching the counter. Mrs. Hartman's demeanor instantly transformed. "Of course, Mr. Bennett, right away." Emma stared up at the stranger, confused and wary. In her 8 years of life, she'd learned that nothing came without a price. The man, Mr. Bennett, didn't look at her directly as he paid. He seemed distracted, almost uncomfortable, as if compelled by something he didn't fully understand himself. When Mrs. Hartman handed over the warm paper bag, he finally turned toward Emma. "Here," he said, his voice gentler now. "Take it." Emma hesitated. "I don't have enough money." "It's already paid for." She reached for the bag slowly, half expecting him to pull it away as a cruel joke. When her fingers closed around it, the warmth from the fresh bread seeped into her cold hands. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, already backing toward the door. Something in her expression, perhaps the wary gratitude or the premature hardness in such young eyes, seemed to trouble the man. He opened his mouth as if to say something more, then closed it again, watching as she slipped out the door and into the grey morning. Alexander Bennett had no reason to be in this part of Portland. His penthouse overlooked the bay from the city's most exclusive address, and his investment firm occupied the top floors of downtown's gleaming glass tower. At 43, he had accumulated more wealth than he could spend in 3 lifetimes, yet satisfaction remained elusive. That morning, he'd been driven by a restlessness he couldn't name. Dismissing his driver, he had walked for hours through neighborhoods growing progressively less affluent until he found himself in this old district, drawn to the warmth of the small bakery. Now, watching the small figure hurry away with the bread, he felt an uncomfortable tug. Perhaps it was the girl's eyes, too serious, too knowing for a child, or perhaps it was the mention of a sick sister. Whatever it was, Alex found himself leaving money on the table and following her at a distance. Emma moved quickly through the awakening streets, occasionally glancing back as if afraid someone might take her precious cargo. She cut through an alley, then another, finally reaching a dilapidated apartment complex near the industrial zone. The building's facade was crumbling, with several windows patched with cardboard rather than glass. Alex hung back, watching as she disappeared inside. He waited several minutes before approaching the entrance, where a broken security door hung uselessly from one hinge. The interior smelled of mildew and despair. Following the sound of small footsteps, he climbed 4 flights of stairs, wincing at the graffiti and needle caps littering the corners. At the end of a dimly lit hallway, he saw Emma slip into apartment 4E. He approached quietly, noticing the door didn't properly close in its warped frame. Through the gap he could hear a small voice. "Look what I got, Lily, real bread, and it's still warm, and cinnamon buns too." "Where'd you get it, Emmy?" The second voice was higher, weaker. "A man at the bakery bought it. I think he felt sorry for me." "Did you have to do anything for it?" The question, coming from a child so young, made Alex's stomach turn. What kind of life had these girls experienced to even consider such a thing? "No, silly. He just gave it to us. Now eat slowly, okay? You'll get a tummy ache." Alex shifted, slightly, trying to see more. The apartment was nearly empty, no furniture except a thin mattress on the floor, where a smaller girl sat wrapped in a threadbare blanket. Her blonde hair, like her sister's, hung limp and unwashed, but her eyes brightened at the sight of food. The place had no heat. He could see their breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. Empty cupboards hung open in the kitchenette. A single pot sat on a hot plate that appeared to be their only cooking implement. There were no toys, no books, nothing to suggest children lived here, except the children themselves. Emma was carefully tearing the bread into small pieces, placing them on a chipped plate she'd pulled from a milk crate. Her methodical care, her obvious effort to make the food stretch and seem more abundant for her sister, struck Alex with unexpected force. He'd grown up privileged, the son of a banking executive. He'd never known hunger or cold or fear. Even in his most difficult moments, his divorce 3 years ago, the estrangement from his brother 20 years earlier, he'd been cushioned by wealth and position. Alex stepped back, mind racing. He couldn't simply walk away, yet what could he offer beyond a momentary respite from hunger? As he descended the stairs, he pulled out his phone, hesitated, then called his assistant. "Janet, I need you to clear my calendar for the day. Something's... Come up." He paused at the building's entrance, looking back up at the crumbling structure, "and find out who owns the apartment building at 1420 Harbor Street. It's in deplorable condition." As he ended the call, a plan was already forming. He would return tomorrow with proper groceries, maybe some warm clothes. He'd find out more about their situation, connect them with social services. What Alex Bennett couldn't possibly know was how completely this chance encounter would transform his carefully ordered life, or that the 2 small girls in apartment 4F would lead him back to the broken pieces of his own past. The next morning found Alexander Bennett doing something entirely out of character, pushing a shopping cart through a grocery store. His assistant had offered to handle this errand, but Alex had insisted on doing it himself, though he couldn't fully explain why. Now surrounded by colorful produce and everyday staples, he realized he had no idea what children actually ate. He filled the cart methodically: milk, eggs, cheese, bread, peanut butter, fresh fruits, vegetables, chicken, pasta, rice, canned, soups and cereals. In the clothing section, he selected warm jackets, sweaters, socks and gloves, guessing at sizes. Before checking out, he added children's multivitamins, cold medicine and a first aid kit. The cashier raised an eyebrow at the bachelor in the tailored coat buying children's clothing and food, but Alex offered no explanation. An hour later, he was climbing those same grimy stairs, arms laden with bags. He hesitated before knocking on apartment 4F. What was he doing? This impulsive charity wasn't like him. He'd built his reputation on calculated risks and cool detachment. Yet here he was, acting on pure emotion. Before he could reconsider, the door creaked open slightly, and Emma's wary eyes peered through the crack. "It's you," she said, recognition and suspicion warring in her expression. "The bread man." "I brought some groceries," Alex said, feeling unexpectedly awkward. "May I come in?" Emma glanced behind her, then back at him. "Why?" It was a fair question, one Alex wasn't sure he could answer. "Because it's cold, and you and your sister need food." After a moment's consideration, Emma opened the door wider. The apartment looked even bleaker in daylight. Lily sat on the mattress, her small frame racked with coughs. "She's been sick for 3 days, Emma explained, taking one of the bags from Alex. "Dad said he'd bring medicine, but he hasn't come back yet." Alex set down his bags and knelt beside the younger girl. Her forehead burned with fever and her breathing sounded congested. "Have you been giving her water?" Emma nodded. "I fill a cup from the bathroom sink. Sometimes the water's brown, though." Anger flared in Alex's chest, not at the children, but at whoever had abandoned them to such conditions. "I brought medicine," he said, keeping his voice even, "and clean water. Let's get her feeling better, shall we?" Over the next hour, Alex organized the groceries, prepared a simple chicken soup, and gave Lily the appropriate dose of children's cold medicine. Emma watched his every move with the vigilance of someone accustomed to adult disappointment. "Where's your father now?" Alex asked casually as he washed the single pot. Emma shrugged. "He goes away sometimes for work, he says." "And your mother?" "She left when Lily was a baby. Dad says she couldn't handle being a mum." Alex nodded, absorbing this information. "Do you go to school, Emma?" "Sometimes, when Dad remembers to wake us up, and when Lily's not sick." As they talked, Alex noticed a framed photograph partially hidden under the mattress, the only personal item in the apartment. When Emma went to check on her sister, he carefully slid it out. The photo showed a younger version of Emma and Lily, with a man whose face was hauntingly familiar. Alex's hand trembled as recognition dawned. The man in the photo was older, more weathered than in Alex's memories, but unmistakable. His brother, Jack Bennett. 20 years of silence crashed down in that moment. 20 years since their explosive argument, since Jack had stormed out of their parents' funeral, refusing Alex's attempts at reconciliation. 20 years of Christmas cards returned unopened, of private investigators reporting dead ends, of gradually accepting that his only brother wanted nothing to do with him. And now, by some cosmic coincidence or fate, Alex had stumbled upon Jack's daughters, his own nieces, living in squalor while their father was nowhere to be found. "That's my dad," Emma said, startling Alex from his thoughts. She'd returned silently, watching him examine the photo. "His name is Jack Riley." Riley, their mother's maiden name, Alex realized. Jack had changed his surname, cutting the last tie to the Bennett family. "He looks like a nice dad," Alex said carefully, returning the photo. Emma's expression remained neutral. "He can be, when he's not angry or sad." Over the next few days, Alex fell into an unexpected routine. Each morning he visited the girls, bringing food and necessities. He arranged for a portable heater, proper bedding, and even some books and toys. Lily's health improved with regular meals and medication, while Emma gradually lowered her guard. On the 5th day, Alex arrived to find Emma attempting to clean the apartment with a torn rag and dish soap. "The landlord came by," she explained. "He said we have to leave by next week because Dad hasn't paid rent in 3 months. Alex's jaw tightened. "Don't worry about that. I'll take care of it." That afternoon, he had his lawyer purchase the entire building through a shell corporation. His first act as the new owner was to fire the negligent property manager and hire contractors to begin urgent repairs, starting with apartment 4F. As days turned to weeks with no sign of Jack, Alex faced a difficult decision. He couldn't continue this makeshift arrangement indefinitely. The girls needed stability, proper schooling, and legal protection. After consulting with his attorney, he initiated the process for temporary guardianship. When he explained this, to Emma, her reaction surprised him. "Will we have to leave here?" she asked, clutching Lily's hand. Would that be so bad? Alex gestured around the apartment, which, despite his improvements, remained fundamentally inadequate. Emma looked down. Dad won't know where to find us if we move. The simple statement revealed the heartbreaking loyalty of a child to even the most negligent parent. We'll leave him a note, Alex promised, with my address and phone number. The following weekend, Alex moved the girls into his penthouse. The contrast couldn't have been more stark, from a crumbling one-room apartment to a luxury residence with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. The girls stood wide-eyed in the expansive living room, afraid to touch anything. "This is your home now," Alex said gently. "You can go anywhere, touch anything." He showed them to their rooms, spaces he'd hastily but thoughtfully prepared, with the help of an interior designer who specialized in children's spaces. Lily squealed with delight at the canopy bed surrounded by twinkling fairy lights, while Emma stood speechless before the wall of books in her room. That night, after tucking them in, Alex retreated to his study with a glass of scotch and the photograph of Jack. The legal process of establishing guardianship would eventually require contacting the girl's father. He would have to face his brother again, confront the decades of silence and the current reality of neglect. But beneath his anger at Jack's treatment of the girls lay a more complex emotion. These children were Bennett's, regardless of the name they used. They were family, his family. And he had failed them by losing touch with their father all those years ago. As he stared at Jack's image, memories surfaced of two brothers who had once been inseparable, of teaching Jack to ride a bike, of defending him against bullies, of late-night conversations about their dreams and futures. Somewhere along the way, they had lost that connection, hardening into strangers who shared blood but nothing else. The irony wasn't lost on Alex that two innocent children might now bridge that chasm. If Jack could be found, if he was willing to be found, and if the damage of 20 years could possibly be repaired. Outside his study window, Portland's lights twinkled like earthbound stars. Somewhere in that maze of streets was his brother, a man who had created two remarkable daughters and then left them to fend for themselves. A man Alex had once loved more than anyone in the world and then lost through pride and misunderstanding. "I'll find you, Jack," he whispered to the photograph, "for their sake if not for ours." What Alex couldn't know was how soon that confrontation would come, or how it would shake the fragile new foundation he was building with Emma and Lily. The transition from rescuer to guardian proved more challenging than Alex had anticipated. While his wealth could provide material comfort, it couldn't instantly heal the emotional wounds the girls carried. Emma, particularly, remained vigilant, as if waiting for this new reality to dissolve like morning fog. "You don't have to keep hoarding food," Alex said gently one morning, discovering Emma's dresser drawers filled with cereal bars and apples. "There will always be enough here." Emma's eyes dropped to the floor. "Oh, you might change your mind about us." "I won't," Alex promised, though he understood her skepticism. Everyone else had. Enrolling the girls in Portland's prestigious Ocean View Academy required creative explanations. Alex introduced himself as their uncle, which was technically true, saying they were staying with him while their father was away on extended business. The school administrators exchanged knowing glances, but asked no further questions. Alex Bennett's substantial donation to the school's endowment fund ensured discretion. Lily adapted quickly, her naturally sunny disposition blossoming in a stable environment. She chatted about new friends and finger-painting adventures, seemingly unburdened by the precarious life she'd so recently escaped. Emma, however, struggled to connect with classmates, whose biggest worries were birthday party themes and piano recitals. "They talk funny," she confided to Alex after her first week, "like people on TV." Alex understood. The cultural chasm between poverty and privilege wasn't easily bridged, even for a child. Give it time, he advised, though privately he worried about Emma's isolation. As the girls settled into school routines, Alex adjusted his professional life around them. He began working from home 3 days a week, arranged his meetings around school pickups, and learned to prepare simple meals that met with their approval. His executive team was baffled by this transformation, but Alex found himself unexpectedly fulfilled by these new responsibilities. 6 weeks into their new arrangement, the first complication arose. Mrs. Winters, the elderly neighbor from the apartment building, spotted Alex with the girls at a local ice cream parlor. "So it's true," she said, approaching their table with narrowed eyes. "You took those, Riley." "Girls." Alex maintained his composure, aware of Emma watching the interaction intently. "I'm their uncle. I'm caring for them while their father is away." Mrs. Winters snorted. "Uncle? That's not what Jack called you when he was drunk. And he's not away. He's hiding from his debts again." After she left, Emma stared at her melting ice cream. "Dad never mentioned having a brother." Alex chose his words carefully. "Your father and I lost touch many years ago, before you were born." "Why?" It was a simple question with a complicated answer. How could he explain to an 8-year-old the tangled resentments that had driven the brothers apart? The disagreement over their parents' estate, Jack's accusations of betrayal, the harsh words neither could take back. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," Alex said finally. "We let pride get in the way of family." That evening, after the girls were asleep, Alex received a call from his private investigator. "I've got a lead on Jack Riley, formerly Bennett," the investigator reported. "He's been working odd jobs on fishing boats up and down the coast, currently crewing on a commercial vessel out of Rockland. They're due back in port next week." Alex thanked him and hung up, emotions churning. Soon he would face his brother again, no longer the angry young man who had stormed out of his life, but a father who had abandoned his children to cold and hunger. The following day brought another unexpected development. A woman from Child Protective Services appeared at the penthouse, explaining she was responding to an anonymous report. "I'm Diane Morales," she said, displaying her credentials. "We received concerning information about 2 minors potentially being exploited by an unrelated adult male." Alex invited her in, maintaining a calm exterior despite his racing heart. "I assure you, there's been a misunderstanding. I'm their uncle." Ms. Morales remained professionally skeptical as she inspected the penthouse, noting the well-appointed children's rooms, fully stocked refrigerator, and homework spread across the dining table. She interviewed the girls separately, her expression softening as Lily enthusiastically showed off her new stuffed animals, and Emma reluctantly admitted that living with Uncle Alex was okay, I guess. "Their father is my brother," Alex explained afterward, showing her the family photograph he'd carefully framed for his desk. "He's working on fishing vessels and asked me to care for the girls temporarily. I have his written permission." The hastily created document, backdated and featuring a reasonable forgery of what Alex remembered of Jack's signature, was a necessary deception. Ms. Morales made notes in her file, and the previous living conditions reported: an unheated apartment, inadequate food. "A misunderstanding," Alex replied smoothly. "Their apartment building was undergoing renovations when they came to stay with me. The heating issues were temporary." When she finally left, promising to follow up, Alex sank into his sofa, exhausted by the performance. Emma stood in the hallway, watching him with unreadable eyes. "You lied to her," she said, "not a question but an observation." Alex didn't deny it. "Sometimes we have to protect the people we care about, even if that means bending the truth." Emma considered this. "Are you going to send us back to Dad when he comes home?" The question pierced Alex more deeply than he expected. "What do you want, Emma?" She looked down at her sock-covered feet. "I want Lily to keep smiling." She didn't smile much before. It wasn't an answer, but it told Alex everything he needed to know. The following week brought a series of unexpected snowstorms, paralyzing Portland's harbor and delaying the fishing fleet's return. Alex used the reprieve to consult with his attorneys about more permanent guardianship options. The legal path forward was complicated. Jack would need to either consent to the arrangement or be proven unfit, neither of which seemed straightforward. Meanwhile, Emma had her first breakthrough at school. Her teacher called Alex, excited, to share that Emma had written a remarkable essay about resilience, using the metaphor of a small bakery surviving in a changing neighborhood. She has extraordinary insight for her age, the teacher gushed, and a genuine talent for storytelling. That evening, Alex took Emma for hot chocolate at a cafe near the harbor. As snowflakes danced outside the steamy windows, he broached the subject of her essay. "Miss Phillips says you're quite the writer." Emma shrugged, but couldn't hide the small smile playing at her lips. "I just wrote about the bakery where we met. It made me think about how some places hang on even when everything changes around them." Alex was struck by her perception. "Like people sometimes have to do?" She nodded, stirring her cocoa thoughtfully. "Like you did after your parents died, and like me and Lily did when Mum left." The simple comparison startled Alex. Somehow, this child had intuited his own history of loss and resilience. "How did you know about my parents?" "I heard you talking on the phone, and there's a picture of them in your study with you and Dad when you were young." Emma looked up, her eyes serious beyond her years. "Why did you and Dad stop being brothers?" The directness of the question deserved honesty. "We disagreed about what should happen after our parents were gone. I wanted to invest their money, grow the family business. Jack wanted to sell everything and follow his own path. We both said hurtful things. He left and my pride kept me from finding him." "But you found us instead," Emma said. "Yes," Alex agreed, throat tight with emotion. "I found you instead." As they walked home through the gently falling snow, Emma slipped her mittened hand into his, the first time she had initiated such contact. The simple gesture of trust felt more significant than any business deal Alex had ever closed. Back at the penthouse, they found Lily had created a welcome banner with glitter and markers proudly hung across the entryway. "Ms. Morales called," the little girl announced. "She said we get to stay with Uncle Alex forever." Alex froze, confused. "She said that exactly?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "She talked to Daddy on the phone. She said he agreed it was best." Emma's hand tightened in his. "Dad called?" Alex's mind raced. How had CPS contacted Jack when even his private investigator hadn't yet made direct contact? And why would Jack suddenly agree to a formal guardianship arrangement without speaking to Alex directly? "Let me make a quick call," he said, retreating to his study. Ms. Morales answered on the third ring. "Mr. Bennett, I was about to call you. We've had an interesting development." "So I heard." "You spoke with my brother?" "Yes. He called our office this morning, saying he'd received our contact information from a neighbor. He expressed remorse about the girls' living conditions and stated he believes they're better off with you for the foreseeable future. He's agreed to temporary guardianship while he, in his words, gets his life together." Alex struggled to reconcile this information with the brother he remembered. Proud, defiant, unwilling to admit weakness. "Did he leave a contact number?" "No, and the call came from a blocked number. He said he'd be in touch directly with you soon." After hanging up, Alex stared out at the snow-covered city, unease settling over him like a shadow. Something about this sudden development felt wrong, orchestrated. Jack agreeing so easily. The timing of the call right after the CPS visit. His instincts, honed through years of business negotiations, warned of manipulation. But to what end? And why now, when the girls were finally finding stability? As he rejoined Emma and Lily for dinner, Alex maintained a cheerful facade while inwardly preparing for whatever storm might be brewing. 20 years of separation had made his brother a stranger who had abandoned his daughters once and who might have unpredictable motives now. What Alex couldn't anticipate was that the approaching confrontation would reveal secrets, far more complicated than a simple family estrangement, secrets that would force him to question everything he thought he knew about his brother, himself, and the true meaning of family. February brought relentless snowstorms to Portland, blanketing the city in a peaceful white that belied Alex's growing unease. 3 weeks had passed since the mysterious call to CPS, and still no direct contact from Jack. The private investigator confirmed that Jack's fishing vessel had returned to port, but he had not reported for his next scheduled voyage. "It's like he vanished," the investigator reported. His crewmates say he collected his pay and mentioned heading south for better opportunities. Meanwhile, the temporary guardianship papers had arrived, bearing what appeared to be Jack's signature, though Alex couldn't be certain it was genuine. The legal proceedings were moving forward smoothly, too smoothly given the circumstances. One bright spot amid the uncertainty was the girls' continued adjustment. Lily had been selected for her kindergarten's winter pageant, while Emma had reluctantly joined the school's creative writing club at her teacher's urging. Both were gaining weight, losing the gaunt look that had haunted their features when Alex first found them. The school counselor had suggested therapy for Emma, whose nightmares and anxiety persisted despite their improved circumstances. Alex arranged sessions with Dr. Sarah Chen, a child psychologist recommended for her work with trauma survivors. Emma carries a heavy burden of responsibility, Dr. Chen explained after their third session. She sees herself, as her sisters, protect her and struggles to transfer that role to you. How can I help her? Alex asked. Consistency is key. Children who've experienced abandonment need constant reassurance that history won't repeat itself. Alex took this advice to heart, creating predictable routines and never missing a promised activity or appointment. Slowly, Emma began to relax her vigilance, though she still checked on Lily multiple times each night. The calm routine shattered on a Tuesday afternoon when Alex received a call from Emma's school. She had disappeared during lunch break, leaving her backpack and coat behind. We've searched the entire campus, the principal explained, voice tight with concern. Security. Footage shows her leaving through the side entrance nearly 2 hours ago. Cold fear gripped Alex as he rushed to the school. Portland in February was no place for a child without proper outerwear. As the school security team reviewed footage and police were notified, Alex's phone rang with an unknown number. Emma is with me. The voice sent Alex back 20 years in an instant. His brother Jack, older and rougher around the edges, but unmistakable. Where are you? Is she okay? Alex demanded, signaling to the principal that he had information. She's fine, warmer than she was when you found her in that apartment. The accusation in Jack's tone ignited Alex's anger. You left your daughters alone without heat or food. You don't get to play the victim here. You always were quick to judge, Jack replied. Meet us at Mom and Dad's old summer cottage. Just you, no police. We need to talk, brother to brother. The line went dead before Alex could respond. He stood frozen, mind racing. The family cottage on Sebago Lake had been sold years ago as part of the estate settlement. The very issue that had triggered their final argument. Why would Jack choose that location? And how had he convinced Emma to go with him? After explaining to the authorities that Emma was with her father and assuring them he would handle the situation, Alex drove through the snowstorm toward Sebago Lake. The old cottage road was barely passable, buried under drifts that scraped the undercarriage of his luxury sedan. The cottage itself looked abandoned, its weathered shingles and sagging porch a sad echo of childhood summers. But smoke rose from the chimney, and a battered pickup truck sat in the overgrown driveway. Alex approached cautiously, knocking on the door that had once welcomed him home every June. Jack opened it, and the brothers stood face to face for the first time in 2 decades. Jack Bennett, now Riley, had aged beyond his years. His once handsome face was weathered by sun and hardship, creased with lines of bitterness. His dark hair, so like Alex's own, was streaked with premature gray. Only his eyes remained unchanged, the same intense blue that had glared defiantly at their father across countless dinner tables. You look expensive, Jack said by way of greeting. Where's Emma? Alex replied, refusing to engage in small talk. Jack stepped aside, revealing Emma sitting by a wood stove, wrapped in a blanket. Her expression was a mixture of guilt and defiance. She's fine. Aren't you, Em? Emma nodded slightly but didn't speak. She was at school, Jack, safe and warm. What were you thinking? Jack's jaw tightened. I was thinking I wanted to see my daughter without your lawyers and social workers getting in the way. Is that so hard to understand? You could have called me directly instead of pulling this stunt. Would you have agreed to meet without conditions, without your money and influence controlling everything? The accusation hung in the air between them, resurrecting old wounds. Alex took a deep breath, reminding himself that this confrontation wasn't about their past grievances, but about Emma and Lily's future. "I'm here now," he said evenly. "What do you want to discuss?" Jack gestured toward a rickety table where 2 chairs waited. "Sit. Emma, go explore upstairs for a bit. Your uncle and I need to talk." After Emma reluctantly climbed the creaking stairs, Jack poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a half-empty bottle. "To family reunions," he said sardonically, raising his glass. Alex left his untouched. "Why did you abandon your daughters, Jack?" "I didn't abandon them. I left them with plenty of food and paid the rent through February." "That's not what I found." Jack's expression darkened. "I was working double shifts on that fishing boat, sending money orders to the landlord every week. The bastard must have pocketed the cash and never credited my account. And the empty cupboards, the unheated apartment. I paid the utility bill before I left." Jack slammed his hand on the table. "Look, I'm not claiming Father of the Year here, but I was doing my best with what I had." Alex struggled to reconcile this version of events with what he'd witnessed. "Then why didn't you call them? Check on them? Emma was stealing bread to feed her sister." Shame flickered across Jack's features before hardening into defensiveness. "The boat was out longer than planned. Bad storms kept us at sea and the satellite phone was for emergencies only." "Your children going hungry isn't an emergency." "You have no idea what it's like," Jack hissed, "trying to provide for 2 kids, on seasonal work and odd jobs, no fancy degree, no trust fund to fall back on. Because you walked away from everything, because you manipulated our parents' will and took what should have been shared." The old accusation reignited Alex's anger. "That's not true and you know it. Mum and Dad left the business to me because I was already running it while you were bouncing between failed get-rich-quick schemes. They promised me my share. You rewrote history to suit yourself, just like you're doing now, playing the hero who rescued my kids." Their raised voices brought Emma creeping back down the stairs. "Stop fighting," she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "Please!" Both men fell silent, chastened by the child's distress. Jack recovered first, kneeling beside her. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Uncle Alex and I have some old disagreements to work through." "Are you coming to live with us now?" Emma asked, hope and fear mingling in her voice. Jack glanced at Alex, then back to his daughter. "That's what your uncle and I need to figure out." Alex seized the opening. "Emma, can you give us a few more minutes? There's hot chocolate in my car if you want to get it." Once Emma was out of earshot, Alex leaned forward. "Let's be honest, Jack. You've been an inconsistent presence in their lives at best. Now you've agreed to temporary guardianship. What's your endgame here?" Jack stared into his whiskey. "I thought I was doing right by them, working the fishing routes. Good money, but the schedule's brutal. I'd come home with cash, stock the place up, then head out again. And their mother, Emma, says she left when Lily was a baby. Crystal couldn't handle it. The responsibility, the constant struggle. Can't really blame her." Jack's gaze hardened. "Unlike you, we didn't have a safety net. You could have asked for help. From the brother who stole my inheritance, the golden boy who couldn't wait to point out how I'd failed again." Alex felt a familiar frustration rising. "That's not what happened, Jack, and deep down you know it. Mom and Dad left the company in my control because I'd earned their trust. Your share was placed in a trust with specific conditions." Conditions designed to control me. Conditions designed to protect you from yourself, Alex countered. They knew your history with money, with impulse decisions. The trust would have provided steady income if you'd just met the basic requirements. Jack's expression wavered between anger and something more vulnerable. "So I'm just supposed to hand my girls over to you now? Let you win again?" "This isn't about winning," Alex said quietly. "It's about Emma and Lily. They deserve stability, education, opportunities. I can provide that. And I can't? Is that what you're saying? Your actions speak for themselves. Or, whatever happened with the rent and utilities, you left them alone for weeks without checking in. Emma was acting as Lily's parent. They were cold, hungry, and scared. Jack's shoulders slumped, the defensive facade cracking. I screwed up, again. Story of my life, right? The bitter self-pity in his brother's voice stirred something unexpected in Alex. Not satisfaction, but sadness for the promising young man Jack had once been, before resentment and bad choices hardened him. It doesn't have to be, Alex said carefully. We could work something out, co-guardianship perhaps. You could find stable work in Portland, see the girls regularly, while they continue living with me until you're on your feet. Hope flickered in Jack's eyes, quickly replaced by suspicion. And what's in it for you? The great Alexander Bennett doesn't do anything without calculating the return on investment. The accusation stung because it had once been true. Before Emma and Lily, Alex had indeed approached life as a series of transactions. Now he was discovering parts of himself he hadn't known existed. Capacity for nurturing, for selfless concern, for family. They're my nieces, Jack. My family. That's reason enough. Jack studied him for a long moment, as if searching for the brother he'd once known in the successful businessman before him. Whatever he saw made him sigh deeply. I need to think about it. This whole situation is complicated. Complicated. How? Alex pressed, sensing Jack was holding something back. Before Jack could answer, Emma burst through the door, face flushed with excitement and cold. It's snowing again, giant flakes. Can we build a snowman like we used to here, Dad, please? The brothers' conversation suspended. They followed Emma outside, where the heavy snow was indeed perfect for snowman construction. For an hour they worked together, rolling giant snowballs and laughing as they had as boys in this very yard. Emma's joy at having both her father and uncle together was palpable, and as Alex watched Jack playfully place a carrot nose on their creation, he glimpsed the charming, carefree brother he'd lost to estrangement and hardship. But as darkness fell and they prepared to leave, Jack pulled Alex aside while Emma gathered her things. There's something you should know, he said quietly. Something that might change how you feel about this whole arrangement. What is it? Alex asked, unease creeping back. Jack glanced at Emma, then back to his brother. Not now. I'll come to your place tomorrow. We'll talk then. He hesitated, then added, just remember that things aren't always what they seem. Even in families. Maybe especially in families. The cryptic warning stayed with Alex throughout the drive home, through Lily's excited reunion with her sister, through dinner and bedtime stories. What secret could Jack possibly reveal that would change the situation? As he checked on the sleeping girls one last time before retiring, Alex gazed at their peaceful faces and made a silent vow. Whatever storm was coming, he would protect them. From hardship, from uncertainty, even from their own father if necessary. What Alex couldn't know was that Jack's revelation would shake the very foundation of his newfound family and force him to confront truths about himself that he'd long refused to acknowledge. Morning brought fresh snow and mounting anxiety for Alex. He'd called his office to clear his schedule, citing a family emergency. The phrase felt strange on his tongue. Family emergency. For 20 years he'd been a family of one, burying himself in work to fill the void left by his parents' passing and Jack's departure. Now, his penthouse buzzed with the sounds of children preparing for school, of life and connection. Is Dad really coming today? Lily asked, spooning cereal into her mouth with more enthusiasm than precision. That's what he said, Alex replied, wiping milk from her chin. But let's not get too excited until we know for sure. Emma said nothing, methodically packing her lunch with the self-sufficiency that still broke Alex's heart. After dropping the girls at school with promises to pick them up himself, he returned, home to wait. By noon, Jack hadn't arrived or called. By 2, Alex was checking his phone obsessively. By 4, when it was time to collect the girls, he'd left 3 voicemails, each more frustrated than the last. Uncle Alex, Lily bounded. Into his arms outside the kindergarten classroom. Is Daddy at home now? Not yet, sweetheart. Alex hated the disappointment that clouded her face. He might be running late. Emma, emerging from her own classroom, assessed the situation with one glance at her sister's expression. He's not coming, is he? The resignation in her voice made Alex's chest tighten. Let's not jump to conclusions. The weather's bad and... It's okay, Emma interrupted, her small shoulders straightening. We're used to it. That simple statement, we're used to it, ignited something fierce in Alex. No child should be used to disappointment and abandonment, least of all these remarkable girls who had somehow maintained their resilience and hope despite everything. That evening, after homework and dinner, after bedtime stories and tucking in, Alex made one final attempt to reach his brother. To his surprise, Jack answered. "Where have you been?" Alex demanded, keeping his voice low to avoid waking the girls. "You said you'd be here today." "Something came up," Jack replied, his words slightly slurred. "Business opportunity, couldn't." "Pass it up. You disappointed your daughters again." "Don't lecture me," Jack snapped. "Not everyone has your perfect life handed to them on a silver platter." Alex closed his eyes, counting to 10. "Just tell me when you're coming to see them. They need consistency, Jack." A heavy sigh crackled over the line. "That's the thing. Alex, I've been thinking, maybe they're better off just staying with you permanently." "What?" Alex wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. "Yesterday you were questioning my motives for taking them in, and today you're willing to give up custody. It's complicated." "Then uncomplicate it for me," Alex demanded, frustration mounting. "What's changed since yesterday?" Jack's voice dropped. "I got a visit last night after you left, some guys I owe money to. They made it clear that my timeline for repayment has accelerated." "You're in trouble." It wasn't a question. "Let's just say Portland might not be healthy for me right now. I need to disappear for a while." "And abandon your daughters? Again?" Alex struggled to keep his temper in check. "How much do you owe?" Jack's laugh was hollow. "More than you'd be willing to give me." "Try me." 60,000. Interest compounds weekly. Alex whistled softly. "Loan sharks?" "Investment opportunity gone wrong," Jack corrected, though without conviction. "And if I pay it off, will you stay work with me on a custody arrangement that's actually good for the girls?" The line went silent for so long that Alex thought they'd been disconnected. Finally, Jack spoke, his voice stripped of bravado. "Why would you do that for me after everything?" It was a fair question, one Alex had been asking himself since finding Emma in that bakery. Why involve himself in his estranged brother's messy life? Why take on the responsibility of children he hadn't known existed? "Because they deserve better than what they've had," Alex said simply. "And maybe we both do too." Another long pause. "There's something else you should know before you make that offer," Jack said finally. "Something about Emma and Lily." Alex braced himself. "What is it?" "Not over the phone. Meet me tomorrow at the old fishing pier, 7 a.m. Despite his misgivings about another cryptic meeting, Alex agreed. After hanging up, he checked on the girls one more time. They slept peacefully, Lily curled around her favorite stuffed unicorn, Emma with one arm protectively extended toward her sister, even in sleep. Whatever Jack's revelation, Alex, silently, renewed his commitment to these children. They had transformed his life, awakening parts of his heart he'd thought long dormant. He would protect them, whatever the cost. Dawn broke grey and forbidding over Portland Harbor. Alex arrived at the Ainguet Pier 15 minutes early, watching gulls wheel against the winter sky. The weathered wooden planks creaked beneath his feet as he walked to the end, where Jack's solitary figure waited, collar turned up against the biting wind. "You came," Jack said, not turning around. "I said I would." Alex stood beside his brother, both men looking out at the slate-colored water. "What's this about, Jack?" Jack pulled a worn envelope from his pocket, turning it over in his gloved hands. "Remember when I left? After the fight about Mom and Dad's will? I'm not likely to forget. I was so angry, convinced you'd manipulated them, turned them against me." Jack shook his head. "I wanted to hurt you like I thought you'd hurt me." Alex waited, sensing there was more. "I met Crystal a few months later, beautiful, damaged, desperate for security. When she got pregnant, I thought, here's my chance at something stable, a family of my own." Jack's knuckles whitened around the envelope. But I couldn't stay straight. Kept looking for easy money instead of putting in the work. Crystal put up with it longer than most would have. "Where is she now?" Alex asked. "Last I heard, Florida, with husband number 3. Jack finally turned to face his brother. "She's not the point of this story, though." "Then what is?" Jack held out the envelope. "This is Emma's birth certificate, her original one." Confused, Alex took it, carefully extracting the yellowed document. His eyes scanned the faded type, stopping abruptly at the line for father. The space was blank. "I don't understand," Alex said, looking up. "You're not—" "Emma isn't my biological daughter," Jack confirmed quietly. "Crystal was already pregnant when we met. She never told me who the father was, just that he wasn't in the picture." Alex struggled to process this information. "Does Emma know?" "No, I'm the only father she's ever known. I adopted her legally when I married Crystal." "And Lily?" "Lily is mine. Crystal left 6 months after she was born, said she never signed up to be poor." Alex stared at the document in his hands, mind racing. "Why are you telling me this now?" Jack's gaze returned to the water. "Because you deserve to know who you're taking responsibility for, and because—" He hesitated, seeming to struggle with his next words. "Because I think you should have these tested." He pulled a small plastic bag from his pocket, containing what appeared to be strands of hair. "DNA tested?" Alex asked, bewildered. "Why would I—" "Because I've always had my suspicions about who Emma's biological father might be." Jack's eyes met his, filled with an emotion Alex couldn't quite identify. "Crystal worked as a waitress at that resort on Lake Winnipesaukee the summer before I met her. The summer you were there closing the Hansen acquisition." The implication hit Alex like a physical blow. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Jack challenged. "You were what, 32? Single, successful, probably celebrating your big deal. I would have known if I'd fathered a child. Would you? How many women did you wine and dine that summer, Alex? How careful were you, really?" Alex's mind raced back 13 years to humid New Hampshire nights, to champagne and celebration, to a beautiful waitress with a sad smile. He shook his head sharply, refusing the memory. "You're just trying to complicate things, to manipulate me." "Am I?" Jack held out the bag of hair. "Then prove me wrong. Get it tested against your DNA. What have you got to lose?" Alex stared at the offering, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. "And if you're right, what then?" "Then Emma isn't just your niece. She's your daughter." Jack's voice softened. "And maybe that explains why you felt so drawn to help her that day in the bakery, why something in her called to you before you even knew who she was." The pier seemed to sway beneath Alex's feet as possibilities realigned themselves in his mind. He thought of Emma's serious eyes, so like his mother's, her analytical mind, her quiet determination, traits he'd attributed to Bennett family resemblance, but could they be more direct inheritance? "I need time to think about this," Alex said finally, pocketing both the birth certificate and the hair sample. Jack nodded. "Fair enough, but while you're thinking, consider this. I may not have been perfect, but I've been Emma's father in every way that matters since she was born. DNA doesn't make a parent." "Is that why you're willing to leave them with me now? Because you think Emma might be mine biologically?" "No," Jack said, surprising Alex with his vehemence. "I'm willing to let them stay with you because they're thriving, because Emma's writing again and Lily's laughing, because for the first time in their lives, they don't have to worry about tomorrow." The simple honesty in Jack's voice struck Alex more powerfully than any accusation. "What about you? What will you do?" Jack shrugged. "First, I need to settle this debt. Then, I don't know, get my life together, I guess. Prove I can be someone they can count on." "Stay," Alex said suddenly. "Work for me. We'll find you an apartment near us, set up regular visitation. The girls need both of us." Skepticism flashed across Jack's features. "You'd do that, even after everything I just told you?" "Especially after what you just told me." Alex surprised himself with the certainty in his voice. "If Emma is my biological daughter, then we've both been her fathers in different ways. And if she's not, she and Lily are still our family. For the first time in their adult lives, the brothers embraced, awkwardly at first, then with the desperate strength of 20 years separation. I can't promise I won't screw up, Jack warned, as they parted. I'm not asking for perfection, Alex replied, just commitment. As they walked back along the pier, making plans for Jack's new start, Alex found himself strangely calm about the DNA possibility. Whether Emma was his biological daughter or his niece, his love for her and Lily remained unchanged. They had claimed pieces of his heart that he hadn't known were available to claim. What terrified him more was what to tell Emma. Should she know the truth, whatever it turned out to be? Would it help or hurt her to question the already fragile foundation of her identity? That evening, after Jack had been settled in a hotel, paid for by Alex with the debt negotiation in progress, after the girls had been told their father was staying in Portland and would see them soon, after the initial excitement and confusion had given way to peaceful sleep, Alex sat alone in his study with the birth certificate and hair sample. The DNA test could provide biological certainty, but Alex was beginning to understand that fatherhood transcended genetics. He had stepped into these children's lives by chance, or perhaps by some deeper design, and now could not imagine his life without them. As snow fell silently beyond his window, Alex made a decision. He would have the test done, but the results would change nothing about his commitment to Emma and Lily. Whatever truths emerged would simply be incorporated into the complex, beautiful tapestry of family they were weaving together, a family founded not on obligation or biology, but on choice and love. Alex Bennett, who had spent a lifetime building financial security, now recognized the profound wealth he'd found in a chance encounter with a hungry child, a wealth no balance sheet could measure, and no market fluctuation could diminish. The next morning would bring new challenges: Jack's creditors to pay off, custody arrangements to formalize, explanations for the girls about their father's sudden reappearance. But for tonight, in the quiet of his transformed home, Alex allowed himself to feel the fullness of his heart and the unexpected grace of second chances. Spring came early to Portland that year, as if nature itself was celebrating new beginnings. Cherry blossoms dusted the parks with pale pink, and the harbor sparkled under lengthening days. 3 months had passed since the revelation at the pier, 3 months of careful rebuilding and cautious hope. Jack had moved into a modest apartment 10 blocks from Alex's penthouse, close enough for regular visits, but separate enough to establish his own stability. With Alex's connections, he'd secured a position managing the marina's newly expanded boatyard, work that utilized his maritime experience while providing the regular hours and steady income that had eluded him for years. The debt had been paid, though not without complications. Alex's financial team had traced the investment opportunity to a sophisticated scam targeting financially vulnerable individuals. The ringleaders faced federal charges, while Jack had agreed to testify about his involvement as a victim. More challenging than the financial and legal arrangements had been rebuilding trust with Emma and Lily. The girls initially approached their father's reappearance with wary hope, having been disappointed too many times to believe easily in permanent change. "Is Dad really staying this time?" Emma had asked Alex one evening as he tucked her in. "He's trying very hard," Alex had answered honestly, "and I'm helping him. We both want what's best for you and Lily. Are you and Dad friends again?" The question had given Alex pause. "We're brothers," he'd said finally. "That's even more important than friends." The DNA test results had arrived in a nondescript envelope 2 weeks after that conversation with Emma. Alex had placed it unopened in his safe, deciding that some questions could wait for answers. What mattered now was building something sustainable for all of them. Today marked a special occasion, the grand opening of Bennett's Bakery, a project that had evolved from a casual conversation into something transformative for the entire family. The idea had originated with Emma during one of their weekend brunches. "Remember how we met?" she'd asked Alex. "In that bakery when I was hungry." Alex had nodded, the memory still vivid. "What if we opened our own bakery?" Emma had suggested, eyes bright with unexpected animation. but with a special rule: no kid ever goes hungry there. The suggestion had resonated deeply with Alex, stirring something that felt like purpose beyond profit. Within weeks, he'd purchased a vacant storefront in a strategic location, on the border between Portland's affluent commercial district and a struggling neighborhood where food insecurity was common. Jack had thrown himself into the project, with surprising enthusiasm, overseeing renovations while Alex handled the business planning. Emma contributed design ideas and helped create the menu, while Lily appointed herself chief taste tester, a role she approached with solemn dedication. Now, as Alex unlocked the bakery's doors for its official opening, he marveled at how perfectly the space embodied their collective vision. Warm wood and soft lighting created an atmosphere of welcome. The display cases gleamed, ready for the fresh bread and pastries being prepared in the kitchen. A small library occupied one corner, with comfortable chairs and books for all ages. Most significant was the discreet sign near the register: "No. Child leaves hungry. Pay what you can when you can." "Nervous?" Jack asked, appearing beside him in the crisp apron that identified him as co-owner. "Oddly, no," Alex replied. "This feels right in a way that few business ventures ever have." Jack nodded, surveying the space they'd created together. "Mum and Dad would be proud of both of us." The simple statement healed something long broken between them. Their parents had been gone for 20 years, but their legacy lived on in this unexpected collaboration between their sons. "Ready for the ribbon cutting?" Emma called from the kitchen doorway, already dressed in her specially made junior baker's uniform. At 9 years old, she had blossomed in recent months, writing stories, making friends, gradually relinquishing her role as Lily's surrogate parent to simply be her sister. "Is everyone here?" Alex asked, checking his watch. "Miss Chen and Ms. Morales just arrived," Emma confirmed, referring to her therapist and the CPS worker who had become unexpected allies. "And Mrs. Winters is outside with some of the neighbors from the old building." Alex smiled at the mention of the formerly suspicious neighbor who had initially reported him to child services. After learning the full story, Mrs. Winters had become one of their strongest supporters, helping identify families in need who could benefit from the bakery's generosity. The ceremony itself was brief but meaningful. Surrounded by friends, employees, and community members, Emma and Lily jointly cut the ribbon, while their fathers stood proudly behind them. Local press captured the moment, focusing on the bakery's innovative pay-what-you-can model as much as on the unusual family story behind it. "Mr. Bennett," a reporter called as guests began filtering inside, "is this philanthropic venture connected to your recent application to become a certified foster family?" Alex exchanged glances with Jack before answering. They had begun the certification process together, Alex as primary guardian with Jack as support, hoping to eventually open their homes to other children in need. "Everything is connected," Alex replied. "The bakery, the foster care application, even our family's reunion. It all began with a hungry child and a simple act of kindness." As the morning progressed, the bakery filled with customers, some paying premium prices for the excellent pastries, others offering what they could afford, and some simply receiving nourishment with dignity. The business model Alex had developed cross-subsidized the charitable aspect while still projecting modest profitability, ensuring sustainability beyond novelty. By afternoon, things had settled into a steady rhythm. Jack manned the counter while Alex discussed supply logistics with their head baker. Emma helped younger children select books from the library corner, while Lily charmed everyone with her infectious enthusiasm. Alex was refilling the coffee station when he noticed a small figure hesitating outside the bakery's window. A girl, of perhaps 7, thin and poorly dressed, staring longingly at the display of fresh bread. Something in her posture, in the determined set of her small shoulders, sent a jolt of recognition through him. He watched as she gathered her courage and pushed open the door, approaching the counter where Emma happened to be arranging napkins. "Excuse me," the girl said softly. "How much is the bread?" Emma looked up, her expression shifting as she recognized something of herself in the visitor. "Are you hungry?" she asked gently. The girl nodded, eyes downcast. I don't have money today, but I could come back tomorrow and pay. Emma straightened. Suddenly every inch her father's daughter, whether by nature or nurture, it no longer seemed to matter. You don't have to pay, she said, reaching for a warm loaf and wrapping it carefully. That's our special rule. No. One goes hungry here, especially not kids. She added a cinnamon roll to the package before handing it over. Just promise that someday when you can, you'll help someone else who's hungry. The girl looked up, confused but grateful. I promise. Alex watched the exchange from a distance, throat tight with emotion. The circle was complete. Emma once, the hungry child, now extending the same compassion that had changed her life. Later that evening, after the successful opening day had concluded, the four of them sat together in the bakery's quiet kitchen. Lily had fallen asleep on Jack's lap, while Emma diligently counted the day's receipts, insisting on learning the business from every angle. 17 people received free food today, she announced proudly, and 12 customers paid extra to help cover it. That's the idea working exactly as intended, Alex said, ruffling her hair affectionately. Jack shifted Lily to a more comfortable position, his expression thoughtful. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm starting to believe in happy endings. Not endings, Alex corrected. New beginnings. Emma looked up from her calculations. Can I ask you guys something important? Both men nodded, recognizing her serious tone. I found a paper in your study, she said, looking directly at Alex, about DNA tests. Alex felt his heart skip. The envelope he'd placed in his safe had been opened after all, not by him, but by a curious child with her own questions about identity and belonging. Am I really your daughter? She asked. Like biologically? The directness of the question, so characteristic of Emma, demanded equal honesty. Alex moved to sit beside her, taking her small hand in his. According to that test, yes, he said gently. But I need you to understand something important. Emma waited, her expression unreadable. Jack is your father in every way that truly matters, Alex continued. He's the one who held you as a baby, who taught you to walk and talk, who loved you first. I'm your father too now in a different way. Family isn't just about DNA. It's about who loves you, who shows up for you, who makes you feel safe. Emma considered this, her analytical mind working through the implications. So I have 2 dads? And Lily is my half-sister? Technically, yes, Jack said, joining the conversation. But half doesn't mean anything real. She's your sister, period. And yes, you have 2 dads now. Is that okay with you? Emma's serious expression gradually transformed into a smile that illuminated her entire face. It's more than okay, it's perfect. She reached for one of the leftover cinnamon rolls, breaking it into 3 pieces. When I was little and there wasn't much food, she explained, I learned that sharing makes everything better. Even if the pieces are smaller, it feels bigger somehow when everyone has some. The simple wisdom in her words struck both men deeply. They had spent years locked in resentment over inheritance and perceived slights, missing the fundamental truth this child had grasped through necessity. Sharing connection multiplies its value rather than dividing it. In the months and years that followed, Bennett's bakery became more than a successful business. It evolved into a community cornerstone. The model was so effective that Alex and Jack eventually opened locations in 3 other neighborhoods, each maintaining the core promise: no child leaves hungry. The foster care certification was finalized, bringing 2 more children into their extended family, a 12-year-old boy with a talent for mathematics and a shy 10-year-old girl who blossomed under Lily's exuberant friendship. Alex never reopened the DNA test results, having made his peace with the complexity of fatherhood. Whether Emma had inherited his biological traits or simply his stubborn determination hardly mattered anymore. What mattered was the family they had forged together, imperfect, complicated, and infinitely precious. On Emma's 10th birthday, she received a special gift, a leather-bound journal with a note inscribed on the first page. To our daughter, who taught 2 stubborn men how to be brothers again. Your story began with hunger, but it will be defined by how you feed others, with bread, with words, with love. The greatest inheritance isn't money or possessions, but the capacity to turn pain into purpose. We are both so proud to be your fathers." Emma read the inscription twice, then looked up at the two men who had transformed her life as profoundly as she had transformed theirs. "I'm writing a book," she announced, "about a girl who goes looking for bread and finds a family instead. Do you think people would want to read that?" "I think," Alex said, exchanging a knowing smile with his brother, "that's a story everyone needs to hear." As spring turned to summer in Portland, the little bakery on the border between wealth and want continued its quiet revolution. One loaf, one child, one promise at a time. In its warm kitchens and welcoming tables, a powerful truth was proved daily: that generosity, once set in motion, creates ripples that extend far beyond their origin. That hunger, whether for food, for connection, or for purpose, can be the beginning of transformation rather than merely an absence to be filled. And that sometimes the most meaningful family ties are not those we're born into, but those we choose to create and nurture against all odds. One morning, nearly a year after the bakery's opening, a woman entered with a young girl, the same child Emma had served on opening day. The girl was healthier now, her clothes clean if still worn. "We came to pay," she told Emma seriously, placing a carefully counted pile of coins on the counter. "And maybe, could I learn how to make bread too? Mom says I should ask about her apprentice program." Emma smiled, recognizing her own journey in the child's hopeful expression. "The first lesson," she said, handing over an apron, "is that we rise better together than alone." Behind the counter, Alex and Jack watched their daughter welcome another child into the circle of care they had created together, proof that even the deepest hungers could be transformed into the most abundant nourishment.